Okay, welcome to Anthro is Fun, class number 5, the section on how scientists, specifically anthropologists, look at religion. My name is Victoria Leo, and I, in addition to being a longtime professor of anthropology, I've got a graduate degree in anthropology and another one in psychology. Um, I am primarily, my work right now is, for the last 15 years, has been primarily as a transformational healer. I don't want to bore you with this information right now, so please go to my website, soaringdragon.biz, SOARING, so soaring, soaringdragon.biz, all right? And I've got a YouTube channel focused on my work, which is Human Bio, the numeral 4, everyone. All right, so that's where all the information is. What I'm going to do now is just plunge into the class. All right, this is an introduction to how scientists, let's see if I can do this correctly, how scientists look at religion. Oops, that wasn't where I wanted to be. This is the beginning of the class, which we've already looked at. Where is the religion part? Okay, here we go. Yay. Sorry, I'm just getting used to this new Zoom technology. All right, so we're looking at spirituality and religion from an anthropological perspective, what its purpose was in human evolution, which is, of course, is speculative, and how it plays out in the various cultures around the world, both living cultures and also what we can tell from archaeology as to whether our ancestors engaged in religion. Okay, so we got to define scientists. We always have to start with a definition. You might think you know what you think of as religion, but we need to have some shared definitions here. This is how scientists define religion and spirituality. And please, everybody, deep breath, deep breath. And release all your beliefs and your concepts and your emotions related to that word. Clear your mind and just new information, okay? Blast your way out of that box that you've been in, that your brain is in with respect to what those concepts mean. Good, bad, indifferent. Ooh, I hate it. Ooh, I love it. Forget all that. Nobody cares. Well, I don't care what you believe, what you love. This is science, all right? So we're going to look at what do we have data for, okay? Deep breath. Let it all go, all right? Just keep breathing deeply while I keep talking. All right, religion. The word religion, it comes from a Latin word religio, which means rules and regulations, okay? So it's beliefs, practices, put your hands together, you burn incense, you light candles. Those are practices, rituals, okay? Specific clothing, you cover your hair, you don't cover your hair, you cover this, you cover that, you wear blue, whatever. And all kinds of rules. So it's beliefs and practices and rules. That's religion, okay? And it's about beliefs, okay, primarily, and actions, okay? Spirituality is anything that connects you to the transcendent. And transcendent means you're outside of yourself. You're contemplating something that is outside of just yourself. You're in a state of mind where you don't have all the answers. You don't have certainty. You're feeling awe. If you've ever climbed a mountain, many people have, quote, spiritual experiences anytime that you meditate and you feel that you're not alone. You can feel an energy, a something, however you define it, that is outside of yourself, your body and your brain. There's something outside. Now, it used to be 97% of Americans signed up with a religion. Okay, they were Methodist or Jewish or Buddhist or whatever. These days, 97% of Americans still have either a religion, which is like 33% of Americans are formally affiliated with a religion and go somewhere and make tithes and contributions and stuff. Okay, 33% religion and the rest spiritual. So people haven't stopped feeling that there's something beyond me. They're just defining it differently. Instead of going to church and having a set of beliefs, they're doing this create your own, because their transcendence is falls into a different bucket. Okay, so a different definition. All right, so there's a ton of science research on the value of religion, less on the impact of spirituality. And I will just say, I'm going to do this in detail in a few minutes, but just for now, any religious or spiritual beliefs, or let's start with religion, that are of the a loving universe, and that focus on the ethics of being kind and benevolent and generous, not the angry God, punishment and evil, and we're the only good people in the world and everybody else is evil. That has negative impact on people's lives. The most people who identify with a religion are of the kindly, benevolent belief system. And they are part of a supportive community. So your house burns down, your friends, your family, your neighbors, and your faith community jump in, right? So there's a tremendous, practical benefit, as well as an emotional, psychological benefit to being part of a supportive community. And there's also some emotional benefit to believing that you're not alone with whatever it is that you may be dealing with. Okay, we'll get into that in more detail. So whether the beliefs are true or not, and the point of most religious beliefs is that they're not provable or unprovable by means of science. Okay, the third bullet there, very interesting question. Many people who reject all forms of transcendence and all, it's like I can figure out anything. If I can't figure it out, then it doesn't exist. The problem with that is that the human brain recognizes many, many intangibles that cannot be proven according to the rules of science. Okay, so we've got love. You can say, oh, well, I know this person loves me because they buy me presents, or they, I can see it in their eyes. Well, people can lie. People can lie with their eyes. People can give you presents, even though there's nothing there. But because love is an intangible. So many things that that give us meaning, that are so important to human lives, are intangibles. They cannot be proven by science. You can say, oh, the insula lights up when a person says that they're in love, or whatever it is, but that doesn't prove anything. That doesn't prove that you're looking at love. You're looking at a brain scan. Okay, so that's an important thing to keep in mind, regardless of what conclusion you personally come to on the question of whether you want to believe in something or not. Understand that the human brain is incapable of not believing things. Okay, even simple things like anything that's future oriented is a belief. Okay, it's not. It can't be proven by science, right? For the most part. Okay, there's always a leap, where I trust this or I believe this, right? And beliefs can be either based on some, evidence, seen or unseen, um, or it can be completely blind, right? The blind faith, right? All faith is not blind faith. I've got faith that the sun's going to come up tomorrow morning, and there's some evidence. It came up every other morning of my life. even when I lived in Seattle and I couldn't see the sun, I had faith. I believed that it was there, and that it would come out. If I could just wait until July, I would see the sun. Sorry. Okay, and there's something called scientism, which elevates science to the realm of a religion. If you are treating science as though it's infallible, and anyway, get into this in lots more detail live, but that is every bit as blind as other kinds of beliefs. Okay, click. Why is it not progressing? Come on, let's go. All right. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Let's try that. Okay, all right. One of the things that historically, as we've talked about the development of societies as the form of subsistence changed from gathering, hunting, to horticulture, to agriculture, to industrial production, society got more complex. And instead of relying on a simple shaman, we started to have a paid priesthood, a dedicated priest. Because remember, the shaman was a part-time religious specialist. This is the person that would be a healer. The connection between health and spirituality was always very, very tight. Before we had more modern medicine options, we had essentially herbs and placebos, using the power of the mind. These days we call it hypnotherapy. And earlier times we called it the shaman. So this person was a healing specialist, and they were also a specialist in communicating with unseen spirits, the spirit of the river, the spirit of the trees, the spirit of the rain that would make sure that everything grows, and so forth. Okay, so you have the growth as you consolidate power in with the development of agriculture. One reason why agriculture was an incredible disaster for the human species, according to a growing minority of anthropologists, as the political complexity increased to the chiefdom level and then the nation state level, the development of empires and standing armies and so on, you had these paid specialists who stopped focusing on this deep yearning of the human soul and the genuine connection with transcendence, and it became a source of power in a society that was becoming more and more unequal. right? And also, so these priests and chief priests and popes and so on became secular rulers, and they were using the language of religion to buttress the power of the power elite. Okay, let me see if I can figure out why this is not progressing. Come on. Oh, there we go. Whoops. No, that's no good. Oh dear. All right. Technology, having a little bit of trouble here. All right. Is there any value to religion? Okay. This is where psychologists get in there with. There's a big impact, measurable impact on an individual's psychological well-being. Okay, and there's also practical help in times of troubles. Having some level of certainty about the basics of life, right? And people who are scientism adherents have the same level of certainty. They have the certainty that they're right. They're smarter than everybody else. Everybody's a bunch of deluded idiots, but I, excuse me, I am, logical and so on, which is just as wonderful a certainty, not too pleasant for the people around you. And throughout your life, a faith community can give you community in the sense that you're connected to other people. You can see a history. You can see not just your individual ancestors, particularly helpful for people who were adopted, right? Like me. But you can say, I'm part of this, the Jewish people or the Christian people or the Muslim people, all the way back to, whenever. So there's this larger community, and you can get a lot of calmness in adversity from knowing that you are part of a brave and strong, not just a local community, but this continuum through history. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be racism, which it can devolve in. That stuff can devolve into, of course, but it doesn't have to be that way. And there's a joke here. I'll read it. You can't see it there. While we're working on the secret of life, and these biologists in the laboratory, Dr. Helmholtz there is trying to unravel its meaning, right? So philosophers have been, philosophy and religion and psychology and health have been so interwoven, and that's one of the things that science cannot help you with. Science can't tell you what is the definition of a good life, right? Science is good in answering factual questions, but what ethical system should I use to live my life? Am I being selfish if I park the kids with a sitter and I go back to graduate school in the evening? No one can answer that for you. That is an ethical question, right? And a psychologist or therapist like me can sit you down and have you answer questions that you're posing to yourself and guide you in your answers. But this is not a science question, right? Philosophy is not science. Okay, and I've already talked about this. Okay, people are walking away from organized religion, but they're not losing this desire to be connected to transcendence, right? And anthropologists who have seen the beginnings of spiritual faith, religious faith, very early on, archaeological evidence, have asked the question, is there some kind of an evolutionary advantage why does every single culture on earth at some point in its development develop a concept of unseen spirits, right? And there are a couple of answers which are manifestly obvious to you if you've been, been listening for the last couple of minutes, right? Community. A lot of anthropologists have been advancing the proposition that the reason Homo sapiens ended up being so successful is partially luck. And, I get into that in other classes. We weren't wiped out when the Siberian traps went kaflooey, and Toba went kaflooey, and all that sort of stuff that wiped out most of the human species, but not all of us. Pure dumb luck. Pure dumb luck. But to the extent, the things that were not all about luck, we as a species are very, very cooperative. If anybody tells you that competition is essential and competition is being human, nonsense. Yes, we compete. Mostly we compete because we've been taught to compete by our society. But yeah, there's a competitive spirit. I want to be the one who runs the fastest, and I want to write the best book I possibly can. I'm an author. Yeah, even competing with myself. I'm constantly going to the gym, trying to get stronger. Competitive, yes, but much, much stronger is the urge to cooperate. Because when you cooperate, your chances of surviving and thriving are much higher. And our ancestors way back were not stupid. We've had this size of a brain for a very long time. And our cousins, the apes, cooperate. Okay, so, but nobody cooperates like Homo sapiens does. So, coming together, sharing resources in a faith community, big evolutionary advantage. Okay. And all right, so let's talk about how the subsistence type that you've got is going to predict the type of faith that is going to emerge organically in that culture. So, animism is the situation in which you can feel, I'm looking out my window at the mountains and the trees and the grass and the deer, that all of the things that are alive, the spirit, the anima in Latin, okay, rocks, mountains have a spirit. If you've ever lived near mountains, been enthralled by mountains, you understand this viscerally. Okay, mountains are alive with spirit. Okay, there's a power there. And animism is associated with the gathering and hunting form of subsistence that our ancestors for most of our history until in Mesopotamia around 9,000 years ago. So, from 300,000 years ago to 8,000 years ago, this is what our ancestors did, right? And you might have had one or more shamans who were those people who are just naturally more gifted in being able to feel this energy. Okay. Monotheism, jumping to the third bullet, monotheism emerged when states began to emerge, nation states. They also tend to be associated, they also arose in desert lands among pastoralists. Okay, so we're talking that subsistence, right? Pastoralists tend to come in, get involved with monotheism. Pastoralists also, not always, the Navajo would be an exception to this, what I'm getting ready to say. Pastoralists generally are patrilineal and male dominated. So they generally have a male deity. And when you think about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all arose in the same part of the world, desert lands, and in pastoral and in male dominant cultures, right? And by the way, that does not mean that monotheism is wrong or untrue. It just means that's the subsistence and the environment where it arose. Okay, so you started having monotheism in modern states. Okay, you had polytheism in a group of cultures that were starting to develop technology. They had agriculture, some cases horticulture, right? Which is, you'll remember, horticulture is a smaller scale farming. It's gardening, basically. Small scale raising of crops, in a kind of a kitchen garden kind of a thing, or in a shared community garden of a whole little village. And some, animals, pigs and goats and whatever. But, small scale, right? Not 300 cows. That's where polytheism arose. So ancient Greece and, had many gods. Egypt, right? And as these states arose, they became very powerful. Rome, the Roman Empire, spanned the Middle East, the whole Mediterranean basin, most of Europe, including Britain, most of Britain. Scotland was too far. So, so you don't get monotheism until you've got certain specific characteristics, and it didn't really come into its own until the modern nation state. Okay, now there are some cultures, again, that appear to be polytheistic if you're coming from a monotheistic world. So the British soldiers and British East India Company officials and missionaries who went to India looked at that culture and said, oh, this is polytheistic. They have multiple gods. What scholars discovered in the 20th century and 21st is that no. The Hindu people are not any more polytheistic than the average Christian. In Hinduism, there is one ineffable, unnameable, unknowable one, Brahman, and we don't have a relationship with that. That's what ineffable and that's the source of all, the source of life, the source of everything. Okay, but it's unknowable. So what you do is you have a relationship with the three aspects of this oneness, which are the creator aspect, the preserver and maintainer, and then the destroyer, so that new things can be created. Okay, and then each one of these three aspects of the oneness have hundreds of avatars, right? Now, different names. The spirit that you talk to when you're having marital trouble, the spirit that you talk to when you desperately need rain for your crops, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so Hinduism, for example, is not any more polytheistic than Christianity with the Trinity concept. And some Christians have the Trinity and some don't, I think. I'm not an expert, sorry. Anyway, so that's not polytheism, for example. But a lot of horticultural societies and early agricultural societies were polytheistic. Okay, and so that's the connection with those. All right, let's see what else we got here. Now, another thing about both religion and spirituality is this notion of sacredness. And sacredness is a concept that the human brain has evolved for whatever reason. There's a level of specialness. It's specially, some things are just specially special. Some places, Ayers Rock, and the name escaped, the correct native name escapes me. Hulu or something. Anyway, other places, right? You can climb, you can get out your ropes and climb on a building, but you're not going to practice your rock climbing skills on Notre Dame Cathedral. That is a sacred place. Doing something of that sort would be, people would be horrified. Even people who are not devout Christians would be horrified, because that is a sacred place. Okay, special place. It was designed for a specific purpose. It was designed for a transcendent purpose. This is not an ordinary human activity space. This place is special. So places, texts, people, right? For a long time, the reason that you don't touch the sovereign without permission, she has to put her hand out and, to shake your hand. And you don't just, pat her on the back, right? Is because the sovereign represents the nation. And getting free and familiar with the nation is sacrilege. You're insulting Britain or Norway or whatever by being familiar with the sovereign, right? In the United States, we don't have a sovereign, so there's less of that sacredness. You're not supposed to, get palsy with the president just as an aspect of respect and politeness, but it doesn't have the sacred character. The president, as an elected official, doesn't have that, representing the nation concept. One of the reasons why some people have been so passionately opposed to certain people being able to get married, people of different skin colors, it's a sacrilege for a African American person to marry someone of European extraction, right? The colors of the skin, it's just this. It's not a valid marriage, because marriage is sacred. It's sacred, right? And that's why you shouldn't get divorced, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And that's why, same-sex couples can't get married. You can have a secular union, but you can't call that secular union a secular marriage, right? Or, et cetera. Whatever the problem du jour is, right? One of the interesting things in the 20th century was the creation of dozens of new, very popular new faiths based on a syncretism of, some Hindu concepts and some Christian concepts, or some Buddhist concepts and some, something else, and a lot of them were syncretic with Christianity of some sort, right? Or with Hinduism, with something, Hinduism and Native American spirituality, for example. And we've already talked about scientism. Scientism has its own sacred cows, right? Does everyone believe in something? Yes. It is an essential part of your human emotional, psychological makeup. No matter how logical you think you are, decisions are made in the amygdala. If you're a human being and not an alien shape-changing spy from Arcturus. Okay? So, and this is not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing. It's we evolved to believe in things. So just treat everybody else with respect. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, goodness. That's not right. There we go. Value systems. Okay. And Anthro is fun. The first part of the fourth class, so class 4A, talked about cultural relativism. All right. The way you were raised to do things isn't necessarily the only or the best way to do things. And one of the fabulous qualities of studying anthropology is by getting to know what the whole spectrum of what humanity has done. You can be amazed, you can be proud, you can be awed with all the various ways that we have created families, we've created societies, and we've created value systems, right? Philosophy, value, morals, okay? A fabulous book called Fields of Blood by historian Karen Armstrong. She's written a whole bunch of books. In this book, she with mind-numbing detail, all of her books are mind-numbing, but wonderful, exhaustively researched, looks at the contention that religion leads to intolerance and war. And the bottom line is that people have wars for practical economic reasons and for ideology reasons relating to who's got power in society. What people do is they wrap themselves in religion to do evil things that their religion very clearly tells them, you can't kill people in the name of, God, right? Or whatever. There is no actual religion that tells you to do that. And so, get the book from your library or buy it online, whatever. Excellent research. So, and one of her other books, she talks about the rise of fundamentalism as a reaction to very militant scientism. Science has, God is dead. Right? There's no need, there's no purpose for religion. Science and nationalism, patriotism, nationalism is going to be the source of our national ideology. I want people to be passionate about being Republicans or passionate about the USA. I don't want people to passionately be devoted to making the world a better place through the social welfare actions of their faith community. All right, it's the fundamentalism is fighting back against this very determined attack on making religion completely irrelevant to people's lives and having them rely on something else instead, which is being identity politics, right? And so the people who are prone to identity politics anyway, you know, who are going to respond to this stuff because they're the have-nots in society, can be roused to teachings that their religion never taught them. Okay, so the Jewish fundamentalists, Christian fundamentalists, Muslim fundamentalists, Hindu fundamentalists, who are very clearly nationalists, you know, have hijacked their respective religions and are promoting an ideology and a political agenda. Okay, so one possibility is to get militant scientism to stop and then stop providing the fertile soil for this reaction. I talked about that in my book, Red State, Blue Heart, if you're interested. Amazon and wherever books are sold. Okay, and this is relevant for those of you who have watched the Anthro is Fun Part 4, A and B, and Part 5, the beginning part of this with marriage and then kinship systems. So the physical environment, are you in a desert? Are you in the dry foothills? Are you in a fertile river valley? Are you on the coast? Are you in a place like Seattle where the sun never comes out, etc.? Your physical environment is going to drive what kind of subsistence pattern. So are you doing horticulture? Are you gathering? Are you doing real agriculture? Are you doing in big industrial type farms? Are you working for money? Are you living in a market economy? Are you living in a modern nation state, in a complex iPod, iPad, cell phone situation where money is where, you know, is how you get food, right? That's your subsistence pattern, is getting money somehow so you can buy groceries, and how that drives the type of marriage patterns you're going to get, the type of kinship patterns you're going to get, and religion. Okay, and we talked about how in Nepal you get polyandry because there isn't very much land. You want to keep population low, so you want to have fewer women in marriages, because you need to keep the family size small. Polygynous marriages, many women for one man, have several impacts. You have a society where women have less power. They don't get involved in the local community. They don't run for office. They don't have much power within the family, and they're in a biological competition to produce as many children as possible, especially sons. So you get a population explosion with that kind of marriage pattern. Also, please note, if you're a man in a polygynous society, most of you will have no opportunity to get married. So the only kind of sex you're going to have is with prostitutes, with all the certainty that you're going to end up with some kind of a health problem. Okay, killer diseases of one sort or another. All right. Plus, it's not satisfying. You're not going to have children. You're not going to have a hearth and home. You're not going to have the joy of having someone who's with you for the long haul, who can encourage you and etc. Marriage is wonderful, you know, when it's good. And 80% of the marriageable men in a society will stay unmarried. Right? And what does that create? It creates a bunch of unhappy, sexually frustrated young men who they they don't have a family to provide for. They don't have the emotional stability of a spouse. They don't have the joys of parenting. And they don't have that need to provide that can keep men focused on keeping their jobs, or working hard, right? Because you're working hard for something other than just yourself, right? So you tend to have those are societies where you tend to have a lot of violence and gangs, and the government's trying to start wars because they need to do something with you. So they'll let's draft everybody and get them off the streets. Lots of negatives from situations like that. Various kinship systems, right? Who are you related to, and how is that related to subsistence? We spent a lot of time talking about that in that section. And then religion, and how various forms of religion derive from the type of society that you have, which of course derives from subsistence. All right, so it's pretty easy to put all the pieces together. And any questions about this? You know where to find me, okay? soaringdragon.biz. My email address is victoria@soaringdragon.biz. And I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you're going to have a lot of fun with the remainder of the classes. How do I, okay.